welcome along Sam Fielding to this Q&A session. How are you, Sam?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Obviously, it'd be better if we weren't in a lockdown in January, but hopefully things are going to improve with the vaccine going forward. So it's great to be on the first kind of podcast you're doing for the new year, and I'm sure it'll continue to grow.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of this Q&A series, you're in great company with the likes of Dickie Pelham, Mark Curtin, Bob Sanders that have been on so far. So my first kind of question to yourself is, where do you currently shoot your sport? And I guess as well, how does that look in this time of restrictions at the moment?
I'm currently working for a company called Prime Media Images, which predominantly at Fleetwood Town Football Club, being based in Blackpool, just outside Blackpool. And having worked there for 3 years as a media assistant and press officer and a few other job titles I had there, having the connections was really good for me to get into it. And unfortunately, put a bit of a bad note in there, it was made redundant in the summer due to all the COVID stuff and clubs not being able to have 2 or 3 people on the media team. And from there, I kind of bought my first camera and got involved with this agency due to the people I knew and connections I had already. And yeah, I'm enjoying it at Fleetwood. It's a new experience. You know the players and the staff and the club really well, so it definitely helps in terms of that. And I've been to a few Blackpool games that the team I support, and that's been great to shoot there. A few more things to go around in terms of the stadium. No disrespect to Fleetwood, but obviously a bigger stadium and a lot more things on the outside to take pictures of. So that's been good. And obviously, depending when this goes out, I don't know when it is actually. I think it's on the 13th or 14th down at Hull City with Fleetwood as well. So trying to venture out and go to different grounds and experience new things. So it's exciting, only the beginning. And hopefully one day, as yourself, you want to be working in the Premier League and go into the new stadiums like the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and Old Trafford, because at the end of the day, that's one of the ultimate dreams. And, well, I guess if you go to the World Cup or Euros as well, that'd be even better.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk a bit more about that later on, because that ties into another question I've got for yourself. Okay, so you mentioned that you've sort of worked in media for Fleetwood before now. So what can you tell me, if anything, about kind of a club's expectations for photos that they get in terms of standards and what they're looking for?
Good question. You got me thinking now. I think me and you've spoke before about pictures and what's suitable and what's not kind of a club would use in terms of, unless it's got meaning, you're not going to use many shots of, I would say, players' back of shirts. Obviously, if they're scoring a goal and they're celebrating, it's got a different meaning. But I think that, again, some clubs, speaking for Fleetwood and the time I was there, that we'd probably get at least 30 images during the game, maybe more, and a gallery at the end was worth 100, maybe plus, with all the hospitality stuff in, which as a club you can use throughout the week to promote commercial and hospitality packages, which is good. But in terms of the actual game itself, I think the main one is, hopefully there's goals in the game, so you get the celebration shots. Because when you're using graphics, if you are into the graphics side of things and trying to push them out, if you've got an image where there's raw emotion from a player, that they're fist pumping or arms in the air and they've got a big smile on the face, or it's a group shot and they're all arms around each other, obviously not in these times due to COVID and the 2-meter rule, but that would be, for me, the picture that a club would want, in terms of, if they post it out without the graphics side of things, that it gets the interaction and fans relate to that thing, because they then themselves were also in that enjoyment at that period of time when the goal went in. But I guess in terms of the more action shots, a good kind of tackle, slide tackle, or someone taking a free kick, that the free kick went in. Obviously, it's unless you can pan and you've got that skill to get the whole shot in, that would be great. But no, I think obviously having a clear image that has maybe a bit of a depth of field in it. Sometimes depends on settings, what you're on, and how close players or the background is towards the actual main subject. So in terms of, I guess it could be anything really, but the ones you don't want are ones where there's no ball in it, unless clubs specifically ask for that in terms of the briefs that they give pre-game to the photographer.
Yeah.
Because obviously players might want a profile picture, or the club might want something for the website. But for me, you can't beat the celebration shot, as I said before, that just relates to everyone involved, and they'll be used throughout the year in terms of shots on graphics, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. It's definitely getting itself out there. And as a photographer and someone who's obviously new to the industry, and having seen my images used on the Fleetwood social media pages, it's quite a feeling for a photographer, and I'm sure the players have that same feeling when they're on the front of it and they've got thousands to share it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's part of the reason I've invited you on today, because me and you are both in the first season of our football photography. So it's coming from a very similar place, and I appreciate that insight from a media point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So, talk me through briefly, if you're able to, you kind of what your match day looks like in terms of preparation, workflow, positioning on the pitch, all that sort of thing.
Well, starting from the beginning, it's making sure that everything's working. Last thing you want to do is get to the ground, and your main lens for me is the Canon 70-200 Mark II f2.8. So that's obviously new. I've not got two camera bodies at the moment. Obviously, that's the ambition, to use maybe a 300, 400 f2.8 to get those mid-range shots, longer range shots, and then another camera body for celebrations or goal mouth action. But yeah, it's checking everything's working. The SD card, obviously SD cards in my camera, the 250D Canon. Obviously, I know some people have is it CF cards or the cards they have?
Yeah, I'm using CF on the one body.
So obviously, just making sure that there's nothing on that in terms of images, because what you don't want to do is get to the ground and start taking images, and then you've got maybe a previous game or something you've done personally out there, and when it comes to uploading images to your laptop, it takes twice as long because you've got certain things on it. That would be one of my tips, just to make sure everything's formatted and ready to go.
Hands up to being guilty to that one.
I've done it once. So there's that as well. I think just, again, making sure everything's charged. I've recently bought a new battery. I've never used a second battery on a game recently, but I never knew with the cold and how that does affect laptops. I thought that might be the same. So it's always good to have a backup of everything. Talking of backups, I've got two memory cards, SD cards. When I'm transferring pictures across, I can insert the second one just in case I don't miss any of the action. Yeah, that would be my prep beforehand. Waterproofs if needed. Check the weather. Rains quite a lot, or it's windy on the Fylde coast in Blackpool, especially in Fleetwood. So it's always good to be wrapped up. But talking about more the routine going to the game, I'm always someone, and having the media background with me, getting to grounds 3 hours before was our kind of time scale to be able to walk around the pitch, to know where we can drop a GoPro off, for example, or we know where we're sitting. We can do certain broadcasts when we're there. So I like to get there 3 hours or 2.5 to 3 hours before. Obviously, due to COVID, that can depend on the club and how they'll let you in. I think Fleetwood sometimes 1:30, maybe a bit earlier. Yeah, but I like to get there early just to so I can get some generic view shots of the stadium, the pitch, flags that might have been new to the stadium. So obviously fans want to see things. So there's all that stuff, and also that gives you time to get your camera settings to what you want them to be, whether it's obviously the match shots when it comes to training, which again, that's why I use time to make sure my shutter speed's right. But yeah, that would be my just being organized and having enough time to settle into what you're doing, because there's no worse feeling than getting about 50 minutes towards kickoff and not knowing that your camera's set up in the right shutter speed, right. It's right on the aperture. I'm trying to think of the camera terminology. Just make sure everything's is right, because if you can be more prepared, the more successful you're going to be, and I firmly believe that. And during the games, as you said about sitting in certain areas, obviously I'm kind of a secondary photographer, unpaid at the moment, like kind of work experience. The main photographer would either go, how to explain it, behind the goal that the Fleetwood are attacking, just past the 18-yard box as it was entering the goal line. Tend to go there. And for me, I'd probably go on the opposite side to him. So if the celebration does go in, I'd be there to get that, and we can send it across, and the club would get the pictures that they want to showcase on social media. But I don't think there's anything wrong with going on the halfway line sometimes if it's that type of game where it allows you to do that, because I think doing your homework on the teams, Fleetwood play good attacking football, so you know the ball's going to be on the floor a lot, so you can get those passes in midfield. Where when they played Wigan a few weeks back at home and drew 1-1, Wigan were more the team to go route one. So the ball was constantly being thrown one way and then kicks the other way. So that's another thing, going back, being prepared on knowing your team you're taking pictures of, because if you know they're going to be route one, you're not going to position yourself in the halfway line due to, you know, you're going to get headers, you know, you're going to get tackles in the 18-yard box or clearances. So that'll be another key. But for me, I'd either be behind the goal in line with the 18-yard line, or on one of the sides. Obviously, if you're on your own, it's luck that players come to you, but hopefully they know you and you've got a relationship with them that they can identify you, especially smaller clubs, because there's not as many photographers there. No. But yeah, going on maybe the length of the pitch, going in line with the 18-yard box there, that allows you to get shots inside the penalty area, and also those kind of 25, 30-yard strikes that you might see from certain players. So that would be my preparation there. But everyone's different. Learned a lot from Mark, as you said, who's been on the podcast, and Rob as well. They take up similar positions. So obviously check out their stuff, which I've done in the past. But yeah, everyone's different, Karl. So it's tough.
Sorry, that's been the one unanimous thing I've found in this series. Each time I've asked positioning, it's the same area every time. So that seems to be the one.
I think, if I interrupt a little bit, obviously Premier League grounds, they might have certain zones that you can go into. I think one that sticks to mind is Man City. They've got those little, I want to say dugouts, but little trenches, should we say, where photographers go in those similar areas, because they know that's where they want to be. But obviously you're fighting against many other photographers in the industry, whether they're Getty or some of the PA, you know, some names out there that obviously their pictures might get used more than yours. But again, I think you've got to do what's best for you. And if you know your image is as good as it can be for self-confidence, that's one of the main things that I've learned, that don't compare yourself to other people. I know you want to aspire to be like those top photographers in the world and get to where they are. But first and foremost, I think if you're happy with what you're producing and pushing yourself to be better, that's the main thing. But everyone's different, as I said before. But like I said, I think there are trends in terms of where you can go, and non-league and lower league football, you have that bit more freedom, should we say, to move around the ground during the game, as you'll know full well from your time doing it. So there's pros and cons. Obviously you want to be higher up the leagues to maybe get the exposure, but I don't think nothing beats being a non-league photographer for me, or lower in the EFL, just due to that freedom and the kind of relationship you can get with the club. Because first and foremost, if you can build that relationship with players and staff and media, whoever that might be, fans as well, when they come back into stadiums, it really does help.
Yeah, I mean, I echo that completely. Where I shoot at the minute, Redditch are a very family-orientated club, and it's at a point where during the warm-ups I'll get as close as I can to the players on the pitch, and they've kind of got to know me now after maybe about half a dozen games, and they'll start wheeling towards me to celebrate, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I echo that completely. There's nothing like the character of lower down the leagues.
Certain things in terms of what you can get. It's the characters. Sometimes the best pictures aren't of the matches. It could be Fleetwood have got an old stand behind one of the length side stands, and that was used back in like the 70s, and it's still up there. They don't use it obviously, but you can get some good pictures behind there if it's light, and it just adds to the character of the stadium. So like I said, I think sometimes non-league grounds or lower league teams have that bit of character to them. And like I said, if you can capture it as a random field or a pitch inside a field or that kind of aspect, it just adds to it, because that's unique to that team. And if you can find a unique aspect to the club you're working at as a new and upcoming photographer, definitely take the advantage of that, because you can create some stunning images away from the football pitch.
Yeah, and I mean, you were saying about the positioning as well, and trying different positions. I've got a bit of a mentor who I kind of did an overpass with at Redditch, and he's now with an agency to send him to Championship and Premier League games. And one of the things he said to me about lockdown is it's been good in as much as the stadiums are empty. So he's been able to experiment with having remote cameras in different positions, and it's kind of reinvigorated his love of getting different angles that he'd maybe got out of the habit of and just sticking himself behind the goal. And he keeps telling me just experiment with your angles, you'll get some brilliant stuff.
I fully agree. I think obviously some of the videos I've watched with Mark, and especially Mark Corelli, who I don't know if people have seen, is stepping away from football to do more of his landscape stuff. So I wish him all the best. So yeah, I think one video, I think it was at Plymouth. I think his first game into lockdown or COVID stuff. And he put a camera in the stands, I think, and was shooting. I've never used one, to be fair, so I'm obviously don't know how it all works and setups, but he got some really good pictures, if I remember rightly. I think he showed one or two. And it just, as a photographer, you've got to have that creativity, whether you're at the top level or lower down. And that's what I mean, going to non-league grounds where they've got maybe, I don't know, for example, a church in the background, which you can see from the pitch. If you can get a wide angle of the game going on and stuff in the background, it really does add to it. So I think it does help. It has helped with creativity, all this COVID stuff, despite obviously having a massive negative effect on people and businesses and all that stuff. I think it has kind of brought people's creativity back, not just photographers, but in general world, with people doing so many great things you see on social media away from that. So I do think you're right in what you're saying, that it has invigorated people's creativity when it comes to being behind the camera.
That's it. It's like the old saying says, isn't it, when life gives you lemons and all that. Okay, so next question. What is your favourite photo that you've took so far, and why?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Obviously, you'll email me afterwards and I'll overlay it now as we're speaking.
Yeah, good question. There is one I've got, whether I've still got it, to be fair. One where at early stage I did a long exposure of a Ferris wheel in Blackpool on one of the piers. Okay. And I've never done a long exposure one before. And it was multicolored. So I'm looking at it now actually on my wall. It's got all the lights of all the buildings on the pier, and it's kind of like rainbowy look, just rainbow candlesticks going around on the stuff. And it looks really good. Obviously the quality in terms of, could it be better? It could be miles better. But for me at the time, that sticks out to me, and I've got it framed, which was a great feeling when I got that sorted. But if you're looking at sports, really, I think that's a tough one, really, because I've done a few BTEC games for Fleetwood Town, their community trust and their sports college. And there was a moment when they were playing the local rivals, Blackpool, in a game, and someone scored an absolute worldie of a goal. Some of the players are with your backs towards them, but the joys on the faces, the emotions on the faces, it's fantastic. They're all jumping on each other, and if you only could hear the noise of the fans, the school friends were there, it's a different kind of experience, really. But another one is the Jay Mattetti at Fleetwood. I was doing one of the BTEC games, same day as the one that was on the screen just then. The light was just, sunset was just going down. It was a bit towards December, and I've got him on the ball. There's nothing in the background, so I've got that depth of field, and he stands out. You know those pictures where you just think, I've got him here. I've actually got that timed perfect. And for me, with my 5 frames per second, it was good to get that image. And for me, that's one of the crisp image I've probably taken during my time. And it was just an under 23s game. I've walked across the 3Gs to the football pitch at the training complex at Poolfoot Farm, and obviously knowing the players and that the staff's still there from my time there, I just said, can I come and get some pictures? I plonked my little seat down and got a few, and he used it on his own channels, which he's only a young player, but for me that was a great moment. So I'd have to say those 3 that have been on the screen, but hopefully go and get some more memories down the line, because I'm only at the beginning and COVID restricts us a little bit, but hopefully when we're back in the stadiums, we can, or I can get some more pictures that I can be more proud of.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you say about that Blackpool shot, because I've got a similar shot in mind on my bucket list. being in Birmingham, I intend to travel up when you always have the World Firework Championships in September, don't you? And I'd love to get
Fireworks and illuminations as well, yeah.
Yeah, fireworks, illuminations in the tower. Yeah, that's one of my bucket list shots, I must admit. Okay, so what would be your dream sports photography gig?
Wow. I did say before I didn't want to know these questions, what you're going to questions you're going to ask, but wow, dream gig. Wow. I think it'd be good to travel, whether it's for an agency or a kind of a nations for England, for example, to go and work for them and go and cover behind the scenes at the training complexes and the big games, because that'd be also been a big football fan myself, that would be a dream. But a lot of people, I think the Olympics, aren't they, quite a big one for photographers, just due to the array of sports that they can go down: cycling, rowing.
If you ever get the chance to read Dickie Pellen's book, he talks a lot about his first Olympics and just how magical it was.
I think and it's not just the sport, and I talked this about non-league or lower league, that it's about the character of the people there, whether it's staff or I don't like the word civilians, but people who live in maybe like Brazil, when they've gone to the favelas and they've got pictures of them watching the athletics or football on the TVs in the hut. So I do think that would be, I'm going to say the Olympics. Actually, take away the football would be good to do, but I think the Olympics, just due to the array of things that you can get, just not just sport wise, but landscape pictures of the stadium and the fireworks. There's a good thing on the Rio Olympics of a photographer and how he builds up to it and what he does there. So it's definitely worth the watch, and seeing some of his footage, it made me want to aspirations to do that one day, and that's on my bucket list. But there's a lot of hard graft to go in to that beforehand, but you've got to have these long vision or aims and goals to push yourself to get towards them.
Absolutely. And my final question, what would be your first new technique or shot that you try and get after lockdown? Or in your next game, because I don't know how restricted you are at Fleetwood at the moment.
Yeah, look, obviously it depends when this goes out. Tuesday, I'm awful with dates, to be fair, but next Tuesday, which is the 12th of Jan, I'm at Hull City, so that'll be a new ground for me. Obviously, being a rugby ground, the lighting will be a lot better than at Fleetwood. They've got stands all over the place, so the light's not great in certain areas. Maybe not for that game, but I think going forward is to get maybe a long exposure of a player going past the screen, whether the ball or not. I don't know how it would work, but I've seen a few examples of, and it looks really good. I think there's a Scott McTominay one from Manchester United recently I saw, and he's going across the frame. I think you've got the stadium in focus, or the stand in focus, and he's running past, and it just adds that little bit more to it.
I'll try and find that to overlay now, the shot you're on about. Sure I will.
Yeah. So that's a shot that stood out to me. I thought, how do I get that? But that comes with practice. That won't be something I'll be able to get. I'll be able to try it on Tuesday at Hull, but I think that's maybe come down to maybe a better camera body and being able to shoot those kind of certain frames and get the megapixels right, because at the end of the day, sometimes your equipment does limit you to what you can get. But at the moment, if you can use your tools and what you've got, it's you can get some fantastic stuff. So I think it would be a long exposure of a player or something happening to get that, just something different. But in terms of football, I think that would be mine.
Excellent. Well, all that's left for me to do is say thank you for coming on and ask where we can find you in terms of your social medias and stuff like that.
Yeah, my personal page is at SammyFid. That's on Twitter mainly, and at SammyFid4 on Instagram. I'm just kind of setting up I say business, but something away from my personal account where I can use photos, and that can be found at SLF_studios on Instagram and Facebook as well. I might be able to put some links in the description below, so I'll send those across. But yeah, I'm on the website as well, slf-studios.com. Just trying to build a portfolio of what I can do, and obviously setting it up during lockdown's not the easiest. And my only real photos at the moment are sports pictures and the one family shoot I managed to do when it was eased back in 2020. So obviously sport orientated at the moment, but there's nothing to stop me from obviously venturing out into different areas of photography, which is my aim, because I don't want to be, or maybe it's my problem, this, I don't want to be just in one area. I want to venture out into many as possible. Definitely short term, just to get the experience and get out there and meet people, because I'm kind of a people person, and you can meet some fantastic characters out there in different industries. So that's me, but links hopefully be in the description. Then
they will, and I'll overlay them on a text slide as well.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to get in touch or talk to us, obviously, about photography, I'm more than happy to do that, and give some advice if I can do to anyone new starting, because again, I know there's some photographers in the top give you time and stuff, but due to me not having much to do during lockdown and lockdown 3 or whatever it is now, I'm happy to do that. So give us a bell on a DM and anything on the social media pages below, and we'll have a chat, because the more people you can talk to and more people you can connect with, it can only be better for you going forward in photography.
Absolutely, and I echo that. I mean, I've had Mark and Dickie and Rob say the same to me. They said it's the revolving door. You come to us guys for advice, and we hopefully hope that the newbies can then come to you, and we'll just keep the community nice and open door, because that's how we all get on, isn't it?
Exactly, and obviously people setting out due to new adventures, losing a job or being made redundant. Photography, I must admit, it's something I've really enjoyed. I didn't think I'd enjoy it this much, I'll be honest. It was only going to be a personal thing for me to go out, but to have the opportunities and put yourself out there for doing unpaid jobs, it's definitely worth it. And I'm sure the rewards will come in a few years' time, but you've got to put the graft in, as you'll be fully aware. So it's been a pleasure to be on the podcast and be up with the greats of Rob and Mark. And hopefully we can inspire the next generation of photographers coming through.
Absolutely, and I'll echo that completely. And as much as I've seen some of your work, and it's fantastic, so I've no doubt you'll be up there in the top one day.
Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best as well.
Likewise, and thank you.